Most leaders who are failing have an explanation, and in most cases, the explanation is detailed, internally consistent, and not entirely wrong. The team lacks the discipline the role requires. The strategy was handed down without enough context to execute properly. The resources allocated did not match the scope of what was being asked. The culture was broken before they arrived and has resisted every attempt at meaningful correction. The people in key positions were inherited, not chosen, and are not the people the leader would have selected given a real choice. These explanations are often accurate in their individual details. The assessment of the team's weaknesses is frequently correct. The description of the strategic failures is frequently fair, and none of it matters. Because the moment a leader locates the primary cause of failure outside themselves, in the team, in the strategy, in the resources, in the circumstances they inherited, they have surrendered the only lever they actually have access to. They have moved from a position of agency to a position of observation. And a leader who is accurately and thoroughly observing the reasons for failure is not leading. They are narrating. Jocko Willink's central argument in extreme ownership is not a philosophy of blame. It is a philosophy of position. The leader who owns everything in their world, every failure, every miscommunication, every missed standard, every underperforming team member, every outcome that fell short, does not own it because it is all their fault in some moral sense. They own it because ownership is the only position from which change is actually possible. Fault looks backward. It assigns cause to past events and distributes responsibility according to who did what wrong and when, and under what conditions. Ownership looks forward. It asks what needs to change, who has the authority to change it, and what action is available right now with the current team and current resources. A leader focused primarily on fault is facing the wrong direction. The most dangerous version of this is the leader who genuinely believes the problem is the team. Not because they are dishonest or malicious, because they are often substantially correct about the team's actual deficiencies. The team does lack discipline in this area. The team does not communicate effectively across functions. The team does not take initiative when the leader is unavailable. These observations are frequently accurate. They are also almost entirely beside the point. Because what Willink demonstrates through case after case is that these outcomes are downstream symptoms of something happening upstream in the leadership. And what is happening upstream in almost every case is a leadership failure that has quietly and reliably reproduced itself in the observable behavior of the people being led. The team that lacks discipline was not given a clear and consistently enforced standard. The team that does not communicate was never given genuine clarity about what information matters and where it should go. The team that does not take initiative was never genuinely empowered to act and then held to a fair and consistent account for the results. The leader looked at each of these outcomes and reached a diagnosis about the quality of their people. They were standing in front of a mirror and calling it a window. This is what makes the belief that the team is the problem so specifically dangerous. It is not lazy. It is not obviously self-serving. It is often a thoughtful, evidence-based conclusion reached by a leader who is paying close attention to entirely the wrong level of the system. And because the conclusion feels earned, because the evidence genuinely supports it at the level where they are looking, it is resistant to challenge in a way that simpler denial is not. The leader is not avoiding the hard question. They have answered it confidently and incorrectly and moved on. The action before Episode 2 is a single honest question applied to one specific current failure in your team or area of responsibility. Not a collective or systemic failure. One concrete thing that is not working the way it should be right now. The question is this: if I own this outcome completely, not partially, not just my contribution to it, what would I do differently starting tomorrow? Do not treat it as a thought experiment. Write the answer down before you move on. Because the answer to that question, taken seriously and acted on rather than noted and filed, is the difference between a leader who compounds across a career and a leader who accumulates increasingly sophisticated explanations for results that never quite arrive. Episode 2 examines the specific mechanisms by which a leader's patterns reproduce themselves directly in the people they lead, and why most leaders cannot see it happening from where they are standing. Subscribe so you do not miss it.